The Detroit Lions have made a curious move with a rookie wide receiver that I think we all kind of fell in love with this preseason. We're going to talk about that. And then later in this video, just in a few short minutes, we're going to talk about the injury report, a surprise injury report. A starter is down that I don't think we expected to be out. So we are going to talk about that. And before we get into any of it, I got a question for you. I've been feeling nostalgic, with the Lions doing all these things that they haven't done since 50 something, 60 something, breaking all these records. It got me thinking to myself, who is your favorite Detroit Lion? I don't want you to give me obvious answers here, right? I don't want you to be like, oh, Barry Sanders. No, let's go, let's go something different. Let's go something different. Let's go like R2's Pinner, right? Instead of, give me Mel Gray. That's like, who is the Lion that when you were growing up, you were like, oh, I love this guy. And that is what that's what helped you fall in love with Detroit Lions football. For me, it was Mel Gray. And I looked it up, by the way. Mel Gray, we'll talk about it at the end of the video. But Mel Gray, 6 kick return touchdowns, 4th all time. Anyways, he was really good. But the Detroit Lions have released they've waived. I want to be very clear on this. Rookie wide receiver Isaiah Williams. So why is this a curious move? I think the question is, why now? He hasn't gotten on the field when we talk about playing on offensive sets, at least very limited. He did get a kick return where it almost looked like he stole a kick return from the guy that was lined up in the backfield next to him in the last game, and he took it back like 40 yards. It was a really good kick return, and I'm wondering, why in the world are the Detroit Lions waiving rookie wide receiver Isaiah Williams? That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But then you have to think about it this way. Jameson Williams is coming back. He is coming back to the roster after his 2-game stretch. You have other guys that their injury window or evaluation clock has started. So the Lions have activated the evaluation clock for 3 different players. Broderick Martin, who's actually been out much longer than I thought he would be. Emmanuel Moseley off of his pec injury. And by the way, Emmanuel Moseley, when we get to the injury report, full practice in every practice this week. He's out for the game. They're not bringing him back. And Ifeatu Melifonwu, his evaluation clock has come back. So we need to make room for these guys. Additionally, tight end Shane Zylstra has used all 3 of his practice squad call-ups or elevations, if you want to call them that. He can't use those anymore. So the next time we bring him to the active roster, he's on the roster. That's the way it goes. So obviously, he's in danger of being picked up by another team. I'm wondering if the Lions thought this was a good time to waive him late in the week, coming off of the trade deadline, where a lot of teams, if they had a need, if they had a hole that they needed to fill, they already did it with hopefully trades at the trade deadline. And a lot of players drop players or waive players. A lot of teams waive players during this time. So with a lot of teams waiving players during this time, it might be one of those times where you can, under the radar, let him go. I don't imagine that this would be like an issue where he was not acting correctly or something like that. So I would fully expect, if he clears waivers, to bring him back on our team. All right, now let's take a look at the injury report. We have a full injury report and status for the Detroit Lions. At the time of recording this, which is 4 o'clock on a Friday. The video will go out in 3 hours. At the time of recording this, the Texans did not have to post their game status yet, but we know more about the Lions, and you will see up at the top, and this is interesting to me, I'm wondering, Taylor Decker has been ruled out for the game status. It looks like he has already been ruled out. This is kind of a big blow to this team. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, who's going to get the start? Is Sewell going to move over? And then what are you going to get? You're going to get Skipper on the right side. You're going to get Sorsdahl, who's been I don't know what you're going to get. Truly, we're going to look into this, and we'll absolutely talk about that in just a second. But a couple of other players who are still out. Broderick Martin is out. Jalen Reeves-Maybin is a no-go. Iffy and Moseley are still out. No surprise there. And Rodriguez is out. So, again, we are going to be limited in our linebacking room. We are not deep right now. And that's okay to an extent because I'm going to share with you what the Texans are dealing with in a second. Zadarius Smith, will he play? Aaron Glenn said ultimately that's up to Coach Campbell and Zadarius himself. He got a full practice in today. One of the reasons and one of the ways the Lions are just a class organization, he was supposed to have a bye week this week for the Bengals. So they gave him Wednesday and Thursday off. He didn't have to practice, so he got some extra rest, which is good. He's not a spring chicken here. He's 32 years old, just 32, remember. So you need to give him a little bit of extra rest, and that is just fine. Good news, we get Pascal back, we get Wingo back, and it looks like Vaki's going to be back. That's not as big of a deal, but Pascal and Wingo, that's really big news for a defensive line that's been banged up. Good to have them back. Now, I do struggle with some of the linebackers and things like that out, but when we look at the injury report for the Texans, Will Anderson Jr. hurt his ankle. He hurt his ankle in the game on Thursday Night Football. Usually you'd think, okay, maybe he can get back. He wasn't even able to return in that game after a sprained ankle. All right, at least that's what they're calling it, I guess. All right, he's got 2 did not practices. His game status is looking iffy at best. Kenyon Green was placed on IR recently, so they have a starting offensive lineman out. All right, and then they just started the clock back on the evaluation window on Nico Collins. He did not practice on Thursday. The question is, will he practice today? And if he practices today, will he be ready to go by the game tomorrow? I do believe the Texans have a bye week next week. Don't quote me on that, but I believe the Texans have a bye week next week. So to me, it doesn't make a ton of sense. I'm just being honest here. It doesn't make a ton of sense for us or for them to bring him back. I would imagine they give him one more week because the bye week, because he is so important to that team. He is so important to that team. And this offense has simply not been the same while he's been out. It hasn't been. And so while our defense has continued to play well, even though we give up a lot more yards, and our defense hasn't been the same since Hutch left, their offense hasn't been the same since Collins. And I'm interested to see what happens. So I know that it's bad news. I know it's bad news with Taylor Decker being out. But at least we can chip someone on that side. We can line up Laporta or Brock Wright or Zylstra on that side and chip. And if they in fact do have an injury, all right, we might only have to deal with one extremely good pass rusher instead of 2. So that is good news for us. As far as what happens with the backup tackle position, if you look at the depth chart here, left tackle Taylor Decker, it says Dan Skipper's the backup. Usually what happens in situations like this is we move Penei Sewell over to the left side where he's still very good because he's just an unbelievable player. All right. Also, not that crazy. He played next to Graham Glasgow all of last year, so they'll have good familiarity with each other. And then they, at right tackle, will either put in Dan Skipper or Colby Sorsdahl, like I was talking about. I don't think Giovanni Manu is going to be it, but man, if he's progressed far enough, you never know. But he did not look good enough to do that. So that is the question that I have, is who is going to be the right tackle for the Lions. Okay, so there you have it. Curious news. Isaiah Williams, weird time to be let go. Who is the Lions player, that's the question, who just increased your love for the Detroit Lions? Just looks so good in that Honolulu blue. I told you for me it was Mel Gray wearing that number 23. He was flying. He couldn't have looked faster to my young eyes. Played from the Lions from like 89 to 94, something like that. Again, 6 touchdown returns. 9 is the record. Then 2 guys at 8. And then Mel Gray at 6 for kick return touchdowns. Can you believe that? That's the record. The guys he's in front of are guys that you wouldn't believe. Guys like Devin Hester, right? Guys like, it's just unbelievable. Ahead of anybody you can think of because he was number 4. All right. Thanks for watching. As always, man, you get the support on the channel has been massive lately, so we are so thankful for that. We know it's because the Lions are doing so good, but you have a lot of places where you can take in Lions content. We're so thankful that you choose to do it here every once in a while. Thanks for watching. We'll hopefully see you on the next video.